The Secretary-General of NATO flew to Poland straight from Washington, D.C., where he had spoken to US President Donald Trump.
There are difficult debates between Europe and America over trade and tariffs. And there are calls to revive ideas of European autonomy. Let me be absolutely clear. This is not the time to go it alone. Not for Europe or North America. The global security challenges are too great for any of us to face on our own.
The problem is that the European Union, after Donald Trump came to power, has decided to stand up to and get rid of America from the old continent. The first step here is to be the resolution on European defence adopted 2 weeks ago, according to which the old continent is to be independent from the United States. Anyone who wants to build a European defence system is building it without the United States, that is, outside the North Atlantic Alliance, meaning that it is an alternative to NATO. It is certainly not in the interests of the people of Europe. Polish President Duda cited his conversation with the NATO Secretary-General moments before departing for Italy. Of course, Article 5 on collective defence applies. There is no doubt whatsoever that if any attack occurred, and in particular if it was an attack on our country, on Poland, then the whole North Atlantic Alliance would stand in our defence. Interestingly, Donald Tusk, in front of the Secretary-General of NATO, has clearly changed his tune. We're also counting on you as the Secretary-General of NATO, of course our American allies, but also Europe, because we believe in these two pillars. They are essential to treat Poland as Poland deserves. But it is probably no secret to anyone that Prime Minister Tusk usually follows the trail of decisions made in Berlin-dominated Brussels. As far as Donald Tusk is concerned, this policy that he leads is a very transparent one. Namely, he follows step by step the policy of the European Union. If the United States and Trump's are an opponent for the EU, then they must be an opponent for Tusk, because Tusk owes his political career exclusively to the European Union, thanks to which, among other things, he is Prime Minister at the moment. Most likely, a political decision has been made in Germany and France and Brussels to create something called the European Defence Union, and Tusk is their political appointee. In return, Poland is supposed to sit quietly, not protest, and it is even supposed to support it. And Tusk is supporting it. Tusk is doing what his political patrons and sponsors expect. The stakes are very high, because according to a resolution passed by the European Parliament, the most important decisions on defence, today belonging to each member state, are to be made in Brussels, without the possibility of any opposition. We also have to make sure that the principle of unanimity is applied in the European Union at all times when it comes to security and defence decisions. I can't imagine that in the European Union there will be a departure from this principle, because from the point of view of guarding our interests too, this is of fundamental importance. According to Brussels' idea, everything would take place independently of the United States, the strongest country and the basis of NATO. This is a very risky game because our security over the past few decades has been based precisely on the Washington Treaty. Anyone who works for the destruction of this treaty threatens the security of our people. In the background are the announcements of the European Commission's continuing joint arms purchases, exclusively in Europe, of course, and with money borrowed from the EU. What some European countries are pursuing is a mortal threat to Poland. That's because they want to get rid of the Americans from Europe, primarily in the interests of their arms industry. The Germans want orders to go to Rheinmetall. The French want them to go to French companies. That's their interest, and I even understand it, because they are not threatened by Russia. Poland is the one being threatened. Joint purchases with loans are opposed by EU countries in the south, who do not like increasing defence spending, with loans that will increase their debt. The EU countries' defence spending plans published by Brussels show that US arms manufacturers have been excluded from them. Poland's Prime Minister, who bought a lot of military equipment from the United States during the United Right government, is not protesting. It is a certain commitment on the part of Donald Tusk that, among other things, he won the elections a year and a half ago, thanks to the European Union, but in general this is a reflection of his policies. The characteristic feature of the policy of following step by step what he does, what he wants, the resolutions of Brussels, such as they are, whatever they are. Meanwhile, Donald Tusk's government boasted about another success, started while the United Right was still in power, with the long-awaited purchase of Borsuk infantry fighting vehicles after the change of power. The contract signed today by the Polish Minister of Defence for the new Borsuk floating combat infantry vehicles is another example of a wasted opportunity, the destruction of Polish armaments potential and lack of ambition. Our government prepared a contract for 1,400 new Borsuk floating combat infantry vehicles. They signed a contract for 111 units. This is a disaster. It seems that Donald Tusk, creating himself as a Polish statesman, is more like a modern-day King Midas these days. But so far, nothing he has touched has turned to gold.